Okay. So I'm gonna turn on my camera and get some Vaseline because I cannot run a panel on some chapped lips. Hello, beautiful people. We are gonna get started in like 1.5 minutes. Okay, hello everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. We are going to get started today. Hi everyone, for those who don't already know me, we are live streaming on YouTube as well. My name is Shaun Adebagbo and I am a rising second year med student, and you guys know me as the Premed _ on the Instagrams and on the YouTubes. And we are back with our pre-med Zoom parties, and I'm really excited about today's session. We will be hearing the stories of non-traditional students, and I'm super excited because we have a really great range of people, and I hope that all of you guys can learn from them and hear their stories. So I'm going to have Adora introduce herself first, and then we'll go into our panelists.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adora. I am on Shaun's team. I'm an incoming medical student, also an international student, also non-trad, so that was why I decided to moderate this panel. I guess I attended St. Mary's College, and I guess had 3 years gap year. So, but I will be co-moderating with Shaun. And on my screen, the first person on my screen is Mac. So you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mac. I graduated from Brandeis in 2016. So I took 5 growth years. I'm not going to say gap years because those were growth years. So I want to adopt that term. And yeah, I'm very excited to share my story with you all.
So, forgive me.
Here we go.
Sorry.
You got it.
Let me know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it's pronounced Ewob.
Ewob. Okay. That's much easier than I had it in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Ewob. I'm an MS2. I went to Santa Clara University in the Bay Area. I graduated 2017. There you go. Thank you, Adora. Appreciate you. I did 3 growth years to copy my man Mac. Sorry for jocking your swag, G. But yeah, I had a great time and it taught me a lot. And a fun fact, I will say, I actually am taking a leave of absence for reasons I can explain later on in the presentation. So there you go.
Great. Hajara.
Hi, my name is Hajara. I am a rising second year. I graduated from the University of Virginia in 2017. So I took 3 gap years, growth years, 2 of which were still in school though. Do I have a fun fact? I guess it would be I haven't left the country, these United States, in over 15 years. Hopefully that will change this summer.
Samra.
Hi everyone, my name is Samra, but I go by Samra. I went to UC Davis for undergrad and I graduated in 2019, so I'm on my second gap year. I am an incoming medical student. And fun fact, I'm really bad at answering this question, but I guess, I like salsa dancing. I don't know if that's a fun fact, but yeah, nice to be here.
And Ijoma.
Hi guys. Hi, my name is Ijoma. I do go by IJ. I graduated from Towson University in the year of 2017. I have 4 gap years or growth years. And a fun fact about me, I have a heart-shaped birthmark on my right hand. I brag about it because apparently that means a sign of I'm a compassionate person. So there it is.
Thank you guys so much. So we're just gonna go in the same order you introduce yourself. Take about 5 minutes to just 7 is pushing it, but 5 to 7 minutes to just tell us your story. How did you get to where you are today? And with particular detail to maybe the challenges you faced and the obstacles that got you to where you are today.
And just before anybody starts, I just want to let the people watching us know that feel free to use the Q&A button to leave your questions. You can use the chat to, you go girl and all of that, but just so we can track the questions, please use the Q&A. Thank you.
I guess I'll start it off. So hi everyone. My journey started, I think high school was almost 10 years ago in 2012. You're in high school from New York, you think you're a big shot, graduated on a valedictorian, salutatorian, you get these expensive scholarship, full ride. And then I entered Brandeis, and I think it was my first Gen Chem test, and my score was a 22, and at the time I was 19, so it was only 2 points higher than my age, and that just defeated me. Immediately I ran to the pre-med office because at the time I was on track to do pre-med, and then the woman gave me the whole runaround saying you'll never make it into medical school. So that was my first introduction. Meanwhile, at Brandeis, there was about I would want to say 5 people who were Black males who started in Gen Chem. Mind you, this was a lecture hall of 300. So I'm coming in Brandeis, thinking I was smart, doing so well in high school, got a full tuition scholarship to go to this prestigious school, only to come to this school, didn't even know how to use a pipette properly. That's how bad it was. So freshman year was absolutely ghetto. I didn't think I had the right resources to tutor. I also think I had this ego complex because again, I was some young kid trying to figure things out by myself, and didn't really ask for help. Long story short, freshman year was horrible. I passed all my classes with C- in Gen Chem, lab, and calculus. Sophomore year, I kind of took a break from all of that. I was just this is a dub. So I only did bio. And with bio, one of my professors was just I know you were interested in so much pre-med. Why don't you apply to, I think the program changed name, but at the time I did it, it was called SMDP. And I did a program at Columbia where it was basically with other minority students and funnel you into a pipeline program into medicine. And it was through that program that I really was my first time I saw a Black physician and Black mentors who actually said that I am capable of doing that. But towards the end of the program, they do a kind of like an evaluation to see like where you are. And from my freshman year courses, they were just like, I need to basically change my whole study strategy. I need to bring my grades up. And I had like research experience. So I go on Google and try to find out programs and tell me why every single program we're acting with like 3.3 or 3.5 GPA. So I was just like, that's a dub. This is not made for me. But my school specifically had like kind of like a 5-year research intensive master's program in biotechnology. And a lot of students either do a PhD afterwards or medical school, and you get a lot of research experience. And I needed to help boost my GPA for undergrad more drastically. So I went to my advisor, I applied to that program. And since I was already a student, I didn't have to take the GREs or other et cetera programs, and I was admitted. So technically my senior year counted as my graduate school GPA, and it needed to bring up that GPA after. So after that, I applied to medical school between my senior year and the graduate school year. Didn't get any acceptances because I only applied to 2 schools. And my first MCAT exam was a 493. And then my graduate year, I realized that like biotech wasn't really for me because even though my professor was really connected and stuff like that with like Pfizer and Moderna, I knew about all those companies. It was just not my cup of tea. I wanted to be like patient population. So he put me in touch with somebody in NYU, and I did research there for 2 years in HIV. And I worked with a lot of men who were incarcerated and had a high prevalence with HIV. That was phenomenal. I got a lot of research publication after that. I got abstract for it. And then I took the MCAT. Still wasn't confident in my MCAT score, so I got a 497. And after that, it was about 2 times I applied, no acceptances. But after my second cycle, I got into a lot of like, you're not good for medical school, but we're gonna let you into a program. So I got into like 4 or 5 different programs, and I chose the best one, which was Georgetown. After Georgetown, I think if I was at like my lowest point in my life was probably last year, because like this program was beyond like, it takes students who were international, students who had multiple MCAT scores, students who had really high GPA, but on their contract, they are really strict about whatever their metric requirement. And I'm thinking I missed like my Reno score by literally 2 points. And I'm thinking, it's a pandemic. Black people are dying, like everything there. And like Georgetown calmly rejected me. And I was like literally heartbroken. Like I was so distraught. And plus everything was going on in the world. I got into like a really, really dark depression. And I didn't do anything related to medicine, MCAT, nothing for, I would say like a good 3 months. And then afterwards, by the strength of God and my girlfriend, my brother, and it was just like, we really see you as a doctor. You're really passionate about it. And I was just like, I'm about to turn 27. If this doesn't work out this time around, then it's not for me. I just need to find another career. But thankfully, I applied one more time. I took the MCAT after doing my post-bac, and then I was accepted to actually more than one school. But like, there was some issues with the second school that I got into that I declined. But that's my long story short.
Thank you. So if you guys have questions, put it in the Q&A, as Adora said. And now we're gonna move on. We will get to the questions at the end, but we want to hear everyone's story first.
So I think I'm supposed to go next. And I just wanted to say, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up that. Mag, goated. I mean, kudos to you, man. Like, that was a fantastic story, and I'm very glad to see you in this chat with us as well. So to cut it short, basically, I was a biochem major in Santa Clara, and it was a fine arts school, so we didn't really do science like that. It wasn't that serious. We had like 5 students in my department. I think I was the only black kid in that department, so it was very off-putting. And it was very strange because, with biochem came a lot of difficult courses. I'm sure like plenty of biochem majors know this, like PChem was a thing. And of course we had to also go through the regular pre-med curriculum. And I was pretty much a delinquent in college. I'm not going to hold you. Like the first 2 years I was doing all sorts of debauchery, and I definitely needed to like check my life. You know what I mean? Coming out of African household, they can get very, let me put it lightly, they can get very hard on you on your grades. Like they really want to make sure you're doing well in school, like you're the best of the best and all that. And I mean, far be it from me to disappoint them. So, first 2 years, I kind of lied about my GPA, and I kind of got away with it until my dad enrolled for a what's it called? A good student program over at the car insurance, and low key, you needed a transcript for that, so I couldn't lie no more. It was kind of got caught, if that makes sense. So I basically sent a long ass email that said, "Hey, here's my transcript," and a huge apology. And my dad was basically like, "Look, you get to choose between changing your major to computer science and try to, slum it over in Silicon Valley, or you can try to finish this GPA with, as high as you can get it with biochem." And I'm like, you know what? Nah, I'm dedicated towards medicine. I really want to do this. I just need more discipline in my life. And thankfully, through a very strong support system, my girlfriend, my friends, my sister, and my mom's, and my dad as well, like they kept me on the straight and narrow the last 2 years, and I finally got myself together. But I ended like a 2.9 overall, 2.5 major. So that was like, let me be honest, that was me doing my best after 2 years of just debauchery. So I'm trying to do better. I ended up going to a post-bac at the Keck Graduate Institute, and thankfully, after 2 attempts, I managed to get an MCAT of a 510, and that has its own story that I can explain later if anyone's curious. And I did Keck Graduate Institute because they focused a lot on professionalism, interdisciplinary learning, trying to meld biosciences with business, and of course your clinical sciences as well. And that was very interesting. I actually heard about it from a friend of a friend. And I enrolled in their program, got in, thankfully, and I feel like I thrived in it because they really put you in a position where, like, hey, there's a lot of cool stuff you can get engaged with. I ended up doing some work with Pfizer on a clinical trial participation study, trying to get social media to influence the behavior for minorities to enroll in clinical trials because it's very underrepresented. That was a really great project. And I also got to do a thesis as well. I continued that a thesis or a master's in the school of, I think it was, they said applied life sciences. And that was my master's, and I got in translational research concentration, which was great. Did some bench work involving myeloproliferative neoplasia, which is a very long way of saying blood cancer, and it was a great time. And I came into my medical school thinking, kind of like Mac, where I was like, all right, I'm the big guy on campus, watch out for me. But I was humbled very quickly because at my school, there's a whole bunch of people. I think we have a class of 300. So it's like a lot of geniuses out here in these streets. So I'm just like, okay, so I'm not hot shit. Got it. And actually, and to refer back to what I was saying earlier about my introduction of how I actually ended up taking a leave of absence, I really, I came to the city where my school is at, and it's a city that really needs a lot of help in terms of finances, in terms of public health, which is huge for me. And I will say that, I really got heavily involved in trying to make a difference in that way and less on my education. And as a result, like I just found myself stretched way too thin. And I just thought about it at the end of the day, like my education takes priority. And I really wanted to take a hard look at myself and really try to figure out, how can I really apply myself in a meaningful way to help out the city that I care about so much, but at the same time also continue on a serious clinical education. So I'm just taking the year off, I'm saying, recharge, actually get to work in the city and do the stuff I was actually wanted to do now without the pressure of medical school, and hopefully I can return to 2022, recharge, ready to go, ready to restart MS2. But yeah, it's my story.
All right. Thank you for that. So, my story. Well, I went into college. Like I said, I went to University of Virginia, UVA. I went into college pre-med. I think I was never like not pre-med. There were a couple times mentally where I was like, but for the most part, pre-med. And I went in a bio major. And I feel like most people start off college kind of maybe like the two guys were explaining, a little rocky start, and then you improve your grades. Mine was the opposite. It was literally a downhill from like the beginning. I actually did pretty well my freshman year, and then it just tumbled from there. I didn't really like party or anything, or like I don't know, I wasn't too distracted, I suppose. I just didn't know how to study. But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that until I went to grad school, which I'll explain in a second. But yeah, no, I just did it all wrong. I just did not know how to study. And I was like in denial about it for like 4 years straight. I genuinely thought that I was just doing everything right. And then the C's just kept coming, and I was like, clearly something's not right here. But my problem was that I wasn't willing to change anything. Yeah, like I said, I was just in denial. So I just kind of kept going. Third year rolls around, knew that I wasn't going to apply. My GPA was already tanked by that point. So my senior year, I started looking into like things I could do. I think I went through my senior year thinking that I would just apply to jobs after I graduated. So I was looking for jobs. I went to my school's career center for the first time during my senior year of college. And that was when they, gave me the whole spiel. Oh, you want to be a doctor? Maybe you shouldn't. Your grades aren't all that, blah, blah. Which they weren't, but they didn't give me any, alternatives. They didn't really kind of help guide me in what I could do or give me any encouragement that I could turn it around, stuff like that. Yeah, it was just, oh, by the way, I came in as a biology major. I declared as an English major my sophomore year, dropped the bio, thought I didn't want to do that. Realized I was taking all these science classes anyway, so I added on the bio major again. So I graduated as a English and biology double major. And that was just because even though my grades were kind of mediocre, I just wanted to study what I liked. And I did like biology, but I also liked English and I liked reading. And I'm really glad I did that. It was just a nice break from all the science. Too much science. It was very overwhelming. Clearly, I wasn't doing the science right. So I just wanted to be able to kind of have that. Just wanted to throw that out there. But after my senior year, I applied to a bunch of like nonprofit jobs in like health related somewhat. Didn't end up getting any of them. I just ended up getting a medical assistant job in a dermatology office, which was like kind of an accident. But when I got it, I was like, okay, yeah, this could help me because I don't actually have that much clinical experience. Most of what I did in college was research for 2 years, just like bench work and volunteering. That was pretty much what I did. I didn't really get to do much clinical stuff. So the year that I spent as a medical assistant was very crucial to anything I knew about what it was like to be a doctor. I also didn't get to do that much shadowing in college. So yeah, that was critical. And then I took the MCAT. I studied for the MCAT the summer after I graduated, and I took it in the fall for the first time, got a 494. Like I said, I didn't know how to study, was in denial. And then I finally looked into special master's programs and stuff, which similar to what Mac did, I believe, the Georgetown one, or at least I know they have one. So that's what I looked into, applied to a bunch of those, and I got into one. And I got into one that was a 2-year program. Some of them are 1 year, some of them are 2. The one I got into, the first year, really focused on helping you improve your MCAT score and get more shadowing and volunteering hours and stuff. So it had an MCAT course in it and everything, and I knew that I needed my MCAT score to go up. So I took the MCAT the spring of my first year of the special master's years, which we're on my second gap year now. And I got a 504. And I was content with that because the special master's program, so the way I applied to med school is a little different because the program had no guarantee acceptance into the medical school, but essentially guaranteed interview. Pretty much everybody got an interview. And the acceptances into the medical school were about half of the master's class they would accept if you were in the top half of the master's class. So I was in the top half of the master's class. The second year of the program was all of the first year medical school classes. I was in top and I got in, but I also got accepted to 2 other schools. So I got into 3 schools total, which was awesome. It was my only time I applied, but I wanted to make sure that the time that I applied, I was like ready. I was in extra debt for it, and it was really, really, really hard. Like, these special master's programs are no joke. They will really kick you down if you let it. But it was definitely worth it because I did end up getting into 3 medical schools, which was awesome. And I finally learned how to study, and I finally realized I didn't know how to study. So yeah, that is pretty much my story, I think. Yeah, I can answer any other questions about it later, but yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go next. It's honestly such an honor hearing everybody's story and just getting to be here with you all. But so for me, I grew up in Ethiopia. So I came to the US. I see you, Ewob. I came to the US right after I graduated high school. So none of my credits transferred, and I had to take a gap year between high school and college. And so since I didn't get any high school credits, I couldn't really apply to a 4-year, or at least I didn't know how, if there's a way. So I started community college after a year. And then that's where I spent like 3 years. I took all my OChems, like my general chems, biologies, and things like that there. And I am so thankful that I did, because I had no idea how college worked at all, especially not in the US, first gen for everything. So yeah, I think that really helped me get my feet wet, like in terms of, college career and things. My first year I think it was okay. My first semester, I just took psychology, sociology classes. So it wasn't really overwhelming because I didn't really know what class to take at the time. I was also working. So that was like the part where I was really struggling to juggle between working, and then I came here with my mom. So I was also supporting her while she got her, certificate to become a nurse assistant. So I was working for me and for her, and like taking her places and going to my work in school. So that was a little overwhelming, but I found out about AMSA and MESA like through classmates when I took Gen Chem classes. And so that was really where I got to like have an idea of what being a pre-med would look like, because I wanted to go to medical school coming here, but I just had no idea and didn't really know anybody that, could guide me in that sense too. So yeah, so first year was interesting. And then when I started taking like Gen Chem, it was such a struggle because I also didn't really know how to study for these classes at all. I was trying to memorize Gen Chem, and it was just not happening at all because I just didn't understand how to do the calculations. So it was very hard. And then I went to see an advisor about it, who told me to stop working or else, I won't have good grades. But I couldn't really afford to stop working because I was supporting myself and supporting my mom. So it was really not a possibility for me. So I just had to figure out how to balance my time well, and just try different studying techniques until I found what worked for me. And what worked for me was just like to rewrite my notes and, to like be able to recall and explain to myself what I studied so I can know what I know and what I don't know. But yeah, so AMSA and MESA were my big resources while I was in community college. And so after 3 years there, I transferred to UC Davis. And then I stayed at UC Davis for 2 years. And so at community college, I really had no experiences for anything, very little opportunities to do anything really. So had no clinical experience at that point. Tried volunteering at UC Davis ER, but really didn't get to do much except for clean gurneys. So still couldn't had no idea what to do. And then transferring to Davis is what helped me find research opportunities and also clinical opportunities. There are many sit-around clinics at the school that I went to. So I ended up getting into the Willow Clinic, which is a clinic that serves people experiencing homelessness. And so my last year and then the first year after I graduated, that's where I volunteered. And that really is an experience that made it clear for me being a physician is what I want, because I was also considering other healthcare professions at the time. But yeah, and then when I transferred to UC Davis, I studied neurobiology for my undergrad. And one of my neurobio classes, the first one that I took, the professor sent out an email about RU programs, which are NSF funded and their research experience for undergrad. And at that time, I had no research exposure, so just gave it a shot. My professors from community college wrote me a letter of recommendation, and so that thankfully I was able to get in. I had tried to apply for internships before while I was at community college, but was never really successful in any of them. So I was very glad to get this opportunity. And so I ended up doing this research at UW in Seattle. And that was like such a wonderful experience. I had a wonderful PI. She was a great mentor to me and really like supported me throughout there, helped me to, throughout my project, but also like helped me in terms of career wise, gave me so much advice. So she's kind of the first reference to a mentor that I have. Still keep in touch with her today, and yeah, thankful for her. But so after the REU, I came back to Davis and joined a neurogenomics lab. So that's where I volunteered throughout my senior year. And then after that, I continued to volunteer at Willow Clinic and graduated in 2019. And then I work at a neuroscience lab right now. I've been working there for the past 2 years. And that I studied, like our lab studies adult neurogenesis in mouse hippocampus. So that's been interesting to get to learn molecular neuroscience, but it's also further showed me that medicine is really what I want to do, and maybe do some research on the side, but maybe not, because I was considering MD PhD routes also. So that was an experience that helped clarify that for me, that I'm just going to stick with MD. But yeah, I think this is all I can remember for now, but can answer questions later and expand more.
Hi guys. So my story is a bit different, just because when people think of the term non-traditional, it's always associated to someone who did not matriculate immediately after undergrad. And in my case, though that's true, I did not matriculate because I did not major I wasn't a pre-med major in undergrad. I majored in nursing. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for the past 4 years. And while working as a nurse full-time in the ER, I was also taking pre-med classes at the University of Maryland College Park at their post-bac program. It was designed for career changers, and a lot of my classmates were career changers. So we took our pre-med classes. Some people took pre-dent, pre-pharm, things of that nature, and then applied once after. So my story is that I pursued nursing in undergrad. During my rotations, I was really drawn to the roles of the physician. I saw their impact with the patients in terms of managing their full care from start to finish versus, playing a specific part like I do, like if it's treatment, evaluation, things of that nature. So I was more into that. I was more into, caring for the patients and wide scope of that range. So once I finished undergrad, I passed my boards. I started my first time big girl job. I started looking into post-bac programs, and I was looking for those that would allow me to work, because a lot of them don't require you not to work, because those are the 1 to 2 years. And I couldn't afford not to work because I'm a grown woman, so I need to support myself. So fortunately, the University of Maryland provided classes at night where you were able to take 2 to 3 classes per semester while still working full time. So my schedule was Monday through Thursday, I was in school. Friday to Sunday, I was in the ER. And that was basically how it was for the past 2 years. When it came down to studying for the MCAT while also working during the panoramic, it was a struggle. And I was advised multiple times to quit my job or take a sabbatical so I could study full time for the MCAT. Again, I mean, that sounded nice if you were financially, suited for that, but I was not. So I had to, use my 4 days off to study while I use my 3 days to work full time. So that's how I studied for the MCAT. And I took the MCAT once, I scored a 500. When I saw my score, I did cry. I was considering withdrawing my application, but I was advised, thankfully, I was advised by my mentor, as well as people who are current med students, to say, no, stay in the game, let the schools make the decision. And fortunately, I got into med school and I didn't get to just one program, but multiple programs. And so that's literally my story.
Thank you. So now we're going to go into questions, and Adora's going to ask the first couple of questions, and then I'll finish us off.
Okay, great. So my first question is, which a lot of you mentioned, for those of you who struggled academically, and I know some people mentioned that they did like SMPs or like Ijoma mentioned post-bac programs. Like, what was the turning point for you? How were you able to turn your grades around? Like, what was that thing that suddenly clicked and you were finally able to study better or something, if that was your case? So what was it for you specifically? And everybody doesn't have to answer this, just like if one or two people can take it, that would be great.
I would just say, although I did not struggle academically in undergrad as well as my post-bac, what did help me was office hours, TAs, and I'm a very social person. So the classmates that were doing well, I would go and talk to them and say, hey, how are you doing this? And they were very helpful because during my post-bac, the first half, I mean, a girl was struggling, okay? Maryland is hard. So, but fortunately, people were very nice, people were very helpful. And I was in those office hours, I was in my professors' faces until I was scoring the scores that until I was scoring the grades that I needed. And yeah, we thank God for a curve as well, so.
For me, it was different depending on like what course. Like for graduate school, I feel like I did really well in graduate school because like the classes was a lot smaller and it was like a lot of like discussion based, and the exams were a little bit more like essay styles and stuff like that, and a lot of projects and like defenses there. For post-bac at Georgetown, that was a whole different ghetto mess because it was like we're taking medical school courses. For like anatomy, I realized that I had to like do anatomy every single day with terms like doing questions and doing a lot of flashcards. For physio, I have to use a whiteboard and write out some pathways and do a lot of questions. For biochemistry, since like I've taken it like 4 times at this point, I was just like, okay, Mac, if you don't get it at this point, you need to start looking at something else. So like biochem actually came easy for me. And as for my MCAT, because last year I decided to do my last chance at medical school so late in the game, like, and I couldn't find an exam. I only had like about 3 weeks to study for my MCAT. So I don't recommend to do this, but I only focused legit on 2 sections because I was just like, if I need to score this current score, I need to literally put my eggs on 2 sections. And I prioritized Chem Phys because I got C- up and down my transcript for Chem. And I was like, if I do really well on Chem Phys, at least in my secondaries, I was just like, I clearly know what I'm doing. So like, that was my highest score. And I think it probably was like Psych Soc that was really, really high to help boost my score. So it depends on me in terms of like my studying strategy.
I was just gonna piggyback off of that. I was just gonna say the same thing. I did a lot better during my master's program because it was a smaller class and the environment was just better. I didn't mention this, but a lot of the reason why I just didn't do well in college is mental health reasons, and I did not like the environment at all, but I couldn't transfer. So yeah, environment definitely played a huge role in my performance, on top of other things. But I felt a better sense of community once I got to grad school. So it was a lot easier to approach students, approach professors, approach like literally everybody who was willing to help. Once I realized that I was like in a comfortable environment, because some people are a little more vulnerable to things. Once I realized though that I could be more vulnerable, I was like in office hours all the time. I was the one to be like, hey guys, let's form a study group, like, that kind of stuff. And I took advantage of tutors a lot. I think that was something that I was afraid to do before, but I took advantage of using tutors, and I didn't think that like just because I had a tutor that I don't know, like I wasn't afraid to use a tutor for like every single class, even if I was doing a little bit better. I was like, no, I want all the resources laid out in front of me as much as possible. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So my next question, kind of similar to this one, but for those folks who retook the MCAT, what changed in your studying that helped you with the higher score? And again, one or two people.
I can go on this one. So the first time I did it, I kind of did like a self-study approach, and that was over the summer between my junior and senior year of college. Oh my god, that sounds so long ago. And I ended up doing self-study for 3 months. I tried to like go to the library at my university, which is like 30 minutes from home, and that became a whole commute. So I got less motivated to like study outside of the house. And when I was in the house trying to study, I mean, the PlayStation's right there. Like, what are we doing? So obviously, I wasn't that focused, um, and I'm kind of shocked, but I actually managed to eke out a 504. I knew I wanted to do better, and that being said, my GPA was not really not really good at the time, and I wanted to try to supplement that with a higher MCAT score. So I basically applied for a Princeton review course, which let me preface with this: I needed structure. Not everyone does. If you do not, if you feel like you're like a disciplined person, or you have a group that you can like stay disciplined with, by all means stay within that. Like, don't feel the need to like sign up for these courses, because they will swindle you out of every single dollar they can. If you especially don't have the bag like that, do not try to finesse it. It's okay. Just, find how you can get disciplined without having to do that kind of program. That being said, I did a winter boot camp. It was 6 weeks of absolute torture. I did it during winter break of my senior year. I ended up, because I applied for my second MCAT late, I ended up signing up for my MCAT in Canada. I'm not a Canadian, I'm Californian, so it was a lot to handle. I took my MCAT in Vancouver. It was a lot. Great food, great atmosphere, terrible time to go, but it is what it is. I actually ended up having to take my midterms in school the week that I ended up flying out to Vancouver to take my MCAT. So it was like midterm. Hey, you have to do your MCAT on Saturday. And so I was like, all right, bet, I'm having a breakdown. Thursday of that week, I literally was like in my dorm room bathroom, like because we have like a common bathroom area, sniffling, crying. I'm talking tears, snot. It was gross. So like my girlfriend like texted me, she's like, hey, are you okay? I don't know where you went. I'm like, yeah, I'm like low-key in shambles in the bathroom. Can you like come pick me up? So she just drove me around Santa Clara on the city, and she was just, she talked me down, and she's basically saying, hey, look, it's gonna be okay. Whatever happens, like just know you put everything towards this. I say all that to say this: you do not have to go through what I went through to score high on the MCAT. And I'm not even considering my score to be that high, but like I'm just saying, like, you don't have to go through all that mental mess that I went through. You really just have to have three things, in my opinion. You have to have a disciplined schedule and or a support system to keep you disciplined. You have to give yourself breaks, because you need breaks. Stop acting like we're supermen and women. Like, it's not, like, don't do that. We're humans. We need breaks. And do not underestimate the need to keep yourself in a mentally healthy space. And that includes diet, exercise, sleep, which I was notorious amongst my friends not to get sleep. And that's not a good thing. Don't be proud of that. Doesn't make you a super hard grinder, that just makes you somebody who's sleep deprived. And at the end of the day, that's only going to affect you in the future. God knows it affected me. I'm out here losing my hairline at 26. Come on. So that being said, that is my soapbox. And if you guys have more questions, I'm more than happy to answer in the chat.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this is kind of a hard one. But did any of you just ever consider, and I want to preface this by saying, like, I'm international as well. And so there was just like an added layer. And there was a time I was just like, what am I doing with myself? Like, this medicine is not by force. But then obviously had to reel myself back in. Did anybody else have that crisis where you're like, what am I doing? It's not by force. Like, my friends are engineers making money. Let me go and make the money with them. So did anybody else go through that?
I mean, obviously, I pursued nursing first, right? So everyone would assume, right? When I was in school, while I was working, I was in school. People thought, oh, you're pursuing your NP. I was like, no, I'm a pre-med, and they're like, why? Like, why would you purposely choose to do, before you even go to med school, 2 additional years of schooling, 4 years of med school, mad years of training before you become an attending, when you could just, become an NP while working, mind you, so loans where, and then, become the provider. And sometimes, especially when I was studying biochemistry, I thought to myself, why am I choosing to kill myself like this? But I reminded myself of my goals. I reminded myself of my dreams. And I reminded myself that just because something may be, let me preference, not that it's easier, just because something is more convenient or expected of you, or in a sense, easier in some levels, doesn't mean it's right for you. Just because it only takes 2 years to be a PA or NP doesn't mean you have to do it if you don't want to do it. If you want to be a doctor, then go and be a doctor. Yeah, it may take you some years, but you're going to get to that age regardless. So why not be 37, trauma surgeon? Like, why not do that? You don't have to be 37 and a PA, 37 and an engineer if that's not what you want to do. So pursue your dreams, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be unhappy in the career that you're in.
I guess I'll also answer. I definitely feel you, IJ. And especially my senior year of college, I was like, forget science, forget all of this. I just hated everything, especially my fall quarter. It was just so hard. But honestly, like, I believe it's God's timing, because I found out about this program. It's a pipeline program directed towards minority students, pre-med minority students. And if you have like a GPA of 3.2 or higher, you get to, qualify. You just apply. And like, at the time I was doing research, so I had my PI write a letter of recommendation. And my advisor, we had an amazing pre-med advisor that we're also lucky to have her. I think she was a panelist here, actually, Brielle. I'm forever thankful for her. Honestly, she is one of the reasons that I'm here, that I got into medical school. Shout out to Brielle, always. But so she helped me apply to that program. And honestly, I didn't even know how much I needed that kind of support until I got there, because first of all, our cohort was all like minority students. I got to like Black and Latino, Latinx people, and just like other minority students as well that were part of the cohort. And there was a ton of us. And so we got to, go through that program for 2 quarters. And then at the end, in the summer, the program paid for our MCAT prep course for Princeton. That was definitely, a huge win for me, because I would have just self-studied, because I was not going to pay for a program. But because I just simply couldn't afford it. But it was definitely what I needed, because I need structure, I need classes. So definitely thankful for that opportunity. But having that support and having people that are going through that come from similar backgrounds. We had like students that were also immigrants and students that were first generation, things like that. So just having people that are going towards the same path, that are, that understand you in ways that not a lot of students can understand you. was definitely helpful for me. And the mentor we had for the program, he is an amazing physician and just an amazing person. And he shared his story with us, and really like the way he believed in us made me believe in myself. And that really was the motivation that I needed to just, like I can do this. And so, I was able to, the program helped me study for the MCAT and take that. So I don't know, like if there is like a medical school in the town that you're in, definitely look to see if they have pipeline programs like this, because this is through UC Davis Medical School that was available for UC Davis and Sac State students. So definitely thankful for that program. And yeah, that was what really helped me to keep going, because I was so close to just say, forget it all.
Yeah, so it is 7:50, and we have a couple more questions, and I want to get to some of the Q&A. So I'm just going to ask two questions that I had. For those who did a special master's program or post-bac, I know a lot of these programs have some what feels like unrealistic requirements to even get into their program. How did you navigate getting into your specific program, or what would you say if your science GPA is pretty low or hasn't reached that 3.0 threshold and you're trying to get into a post-bac program?
I can, so the program I did, I think usually the strict requirements are because technically a lot of the programs, like if you get into the program and you do well, you could theoretically get into the medical school. So they want to make sure that like you're kind of applying to the medical school in a way, but you just have a lower, GPA and all that stuff, and you're going to work on the grades. So mine, I think I was fine with the GPA, but the MCAT score I would remember being stressed about because there was a minimum that I needed. And I think I was like right on that minimum, or I was actually even below it with a 494. So I kind of harassed them. I reached out to the person who was like in charge of the SMP specifically, emailed her a lot. And I'm glad I did, because she was extremely helpful. Everybody in that whole like office was helpful. And I just kept like harassing them, being like, I have this part of my application. Do you think this will do well? And they would be like, either yes, or they would tell me, do this to help your application. Like, so just being in constant contact during that like application cycle of an SMP really helped me pinpoint things in my application that I knew I needed to do better on, or that I was okay with. So definitely like look into the contact with them. Like, don't just apply. Like, you want to make sure that you're trying to show that you really want to go there too. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to whoever is kind of in charge of the program. They're usually small programs, so it's fine usually. And then it ended up being fine, because once I got into the program, the same person who was in charge of it, was kind of my go-to person throughout the entire 2 years, and we would just ask them questions. So yeah, I'm really glad I reached out and asked like specific questions. I literally like sent my application and was like, I have this part of my application I'm concerned about. Like, do you think I need to do anything? Or, don't be afraid to do that. Maybe not all the time they'll be helpful, but if it's a good, program, they should be helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on quickly, for me, the programs I got into is because like I applied to medical school the second time around, and basically I got rejected to almost all of them. And then 4 or 5 schools basically was just like, we like you, but like come and do our program if you're interested. So that's how I went about it. So I specifically applied to medical schools that I low-key knew had some type of SMP or post-bac affiliated with them. And for the Georgetown one, you can apply as long as you have one application, one submitted MCAT application. So you don't have to apply to Georgetown to get funneled to the program I did again. You can apply to any school, have a rejection, and then apply to Georgetown.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask all our panelists, for any of the post-bac or special master's programs you mentioned, if you can just type the official name of that program to panelists and all attendees, because a lot of attendees have been asking for the names of these programs. My last question while you guys do that is, from the application standpoint, what do you think stood out or made your application successful? Tacking onto that question, for those who had some more growth years than others, where did you get your letters of recommendation from? Was it a struggle to reach back to undergrad, or did you do through your program? And this question specifically for Mac, you applied, I think, 3 or 4 times. Did you reach out to schools to see what you needed to improve upon in your next application, or did you just kind of say, we'll get them next time?
So like I said, I graduated 4 years ago, so it was going to be a dub for me to even ask my undergrad, not because of not because my undergrad would not write me one, but because it's been 4 years. Like, what are they like? And I'm not in communication with them. Like, what could they possibly say about who I am now? So I only contacted the professors for my postbac, because that was current, and they can speak on my work ethic. They can speak on, my communication skills, and just how they feel about me as I am now. And I think what's really important also, aside from having my professors, I did the committee packets. I know some schools have and some schools don't, with the committee letter. So if your school provides one, I would highly, highly, highly recommend getting one if possible. If not, then, go to 2 or 3 of your trusted professors who can write well about you, and to, PIs if you did research. But I also asked one of the doctors at my job to write me one too, because I'm a nurse. So she can talk about, my patient communication and how I am with patients, and as a doctor, how she felt I would be as a future physician. So those people, I would say, should be your number one priority about getting letters. And you should be able to get them from people you've been in contact with for at least the past 2 years, if possible.
If I can quickly tack onto that, I was going to say, like, for those who are very involved with extracurriculars, I was very involved with extracurriculars in undergrad, and that kind of continued on into my postbac and master's program. But if you build meaningful connections in those extracurricular programs, like, don't just leave them as you graduate. You know what I mean? Like, if you get the chance, like, please maintain them. And I think, if you continue to update them, say, hey, like, thank you so much for, keeping up with me, I'm sure they'll appreciate it. And not just that, but I'm sure that will also translate to a very strong letter as well, even if you are a couple of years removed as well. So that was my case, at least. I definitely reached out to my extracurricular advisors in that, so it was great. I definitely recommend it.
I know we kind of asked this question before, but a majority of the questions we have outstanding, we're really asking about study skills and study habits and study tips. So if each panelist could just go around and share maybe your top 2 study tips, or things that you changed that helped you do better in school, or things that you consistently did that allowed you to do well in school.
I can go first on this one. I was going to say that I actually developed a study method for my fellow classmates and I to follow, and some of them have been using it. So basically what it involves is using, for those of you who are, I think, MS1s in here, like, Anki is huge. It's a flashcard software, for those who don't know about it. Flashcard software to keep you updated on all the things that you need to review on in terms of lecture material. You can create your own cards, download decks from Reddit, internet, all that. And we kind of organize it where it's like, hey, like, today I'm going to go over these lectures on Anki, when in reality Anki essentially just throws random cards at you to review every day. And that kind of like taking Skittles out of a bag and you don't know what color it is. But we kind of organized it where it's like, hey, I know exactly what color I'm picking from. I'm going over this lecture today, and so on and so forth. And that sounds very simple in concept, but when you go into medical school and you're starting to use Anki, for example, you begin to get overwhelmed very quickly with the number of different things that you got to know. So if you organize it in those kind of blocks, those little chunks, and schedule it in a meaningful way using Anki kind of to schedule it, it really did help us. And also an outside resource schedule for those who actually have like school authored questions on your exams. And this is all once you get into medical school, but I think this definitely applies for those who are, let's say, an undergrad, for example. You guys always have like professors making their own exams. You don't have standardized content. So definitely come up with like, look up outside resources to help you understand concepts better, especially in your sciences. Ninja Nerd, Khan Academy, all of that. So I hope that helps.
I can go next. I am also a slave to Anki, but if you don't want to use Anki, the premise behind it is spaced repetition. So that's what you want to incorporate into your study schedule, even if you don't want to use flashcards per se. But spaced repetition is the big thing. You want to make sure you're just seeing the material. If you get a lecture on Monday, you want to make sure you've seen that like 3 other times throughout the week at least. I think that was the biggest thing for me, just making sure I was seeing the material over and over again. Anki helps the most with that. So I would look into it, play around with it, but I know it doesn't work for everybody. Sorry if you hear noises. I live by a busy road. But another tip would be practice questions. Another tip would be practice questions, and another tip would be practice questions. Like that's my biggest thing for sure, is just making sure that I do practice questions as much as possible and incorporate them super early. I always used to think, oh, I'll do questions, but I'll do them like a day before the exam when I'm ready. No, you're going to play yourself if you think that you can only do them when you're ready. Just start doing them like immediately, almost even. I would say that helps, because then you don't know what you don't know, basically. And so UWorld is something that I recommend for the MCAT also. I used UWorld the second time I took the MCAT and it really helped me, but Kaplan questions are good as well. And I just can't stress enough doing practice questions and spaced repetition.
Yeah, adding to on that, I think what helped me is incorporating practice question a lot earlier. Like as soon as like I listen to a lecture or I introduce a topic, immediately try to find practice questions, because I realize it's not even the sense that like I don't understand the material. It's just like I'm not familiar with how it's presented or how to apply the information. So a good way to do that is start incorporating my practice question a lot earlier on. And I'm talking about off the bat, off rip, like as soon as I learn something, either I find practice questions as related to the topic or try to create my own that are similar to like, oh, how this professor or how this practice question was styled. So that, especially for the MCAT, help increase my course significantly in that short period of time.
I can go next, I guess. So for me, like I mentioned this earlier, but especially for like, science classes, definitely trying to summarize what I learned, like from, I'll just sit down, study, read, or, try to understand whatever subject, biochem, physiology, whatever it is. And then I try to summarize what I just read in like a separate piece of paper without looking at my notes. That definitely helps me identify gaps in my knowledge, like what am I missing here? And also helps me to find the big picture and what I need to understand conceptual wise. Um, Also, like for memorization, like in OChem and things, like acronyms definitely helped me. I don't know if that is like something you want to try. That was very helpful for me. And if you can find like people that you feel comfortable studying with, I highly recommend that as well. That is what I did for like almost all of my science classes. And for the MCAT, I had a study partner and we would just FaceTime every day. And even when we're not studying the same thing, we would just be there studying together. And then that helped us both to be accountable. We'll just check each other when one person is getting distracted or not. And we'll just do practice questions together and then discuss them. And like that really helped me, like, okay, like, how did you think about this question? I obviously didn't know how to answer this. So that talking with someone else definitely helps if you have like study partners. And another important thing, at least I found for myself, is finding the best study time and space. I found out like midway through college, I'm very much a night owl. I understand things better at night, so that makes a difference in my productivity. So definitely find a time and space. Like I can't study at home either. Somebody mentioned this earlier, and I have to go to a coffee shop or like, yeah, that was you, Ewob. So find a coffee shop, library, whatever space works best for you, because that also makes a difference so much.
And I guess the last to go. This is such a hard question to answer just because I think, again, I did not struggle academically. So, and how I did well, again, focused mostly on going to the TAs, going to office hours, as well as when I studied on my own, I would try to relate the information to things that are relatable to me. So like, for example, when I was studying the psych-soc portion of the MCAT, it was easier to study it when I could relate it to real life situations, and it made sense that way, right? You weren't just memorizing definitions, you can actually apply it to situations and it'll make sense. When it came to the sciences, I think my biggest tip was really studying with other people, just because, again, as it was stated before, bouncing ideas, confirming your understanding of other people really did help solidify the information. Also, I was the kind of person who studied every day, but I'm not talking about 10 hours a day. That's weird. I'm talking about like maybe, maybe like 3 hours a day. But this is like undergrad and post-bac stuff. Med school is going to be a different beast, I would assume. But yeah, I think it really comes down to just studying outside of your home, if that helps, going to TAs, going to office hours, and working with people who also have the same goals and who are doing as well or even better than you, who can help you as well.
Yeah, and I'll also say, when it comes to my academics, I'll be the first to kiss up to whoever I need to secure the A. And I say this by, you need to become best friends with your professor. Like, I'm talking, you go to their office hours, you need kiki with them, you need to butter them up, ask them how their life is going, all of that stuff, but then also ask questions too. And the reason I say this is, for most classes, the professors are the ones who have a huge input in what the exam looks like and what kind of questions. So especially in their office hours, they're going to steer you towards like, this is what's important for you to know, or this is really what I want you to focus on. So I try to just be strategic about it, because you never know when a professor's gonna come through for you later in life. But that was the last question I had. I want to thank all our panelists. This was such an informative panel, and I'm so happy to have heard your stories. And I know that the people watching here, as well as you two, are probably going to reach out to you guys and ask you questions and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you respond. If you don't, I don't know what to say. But thank you guys so much for being on this panel. This Friday, we have Preparing for Virtual Interviews. That panel is going to be happening on Friday. So please register on Eventbrite for that. For those watching on YouTube, try to register on Eventbrite, because it's so much more interactive on the Zoom. It's a lot more fun. You see all the kiki happening. Next week, I'm really excited about, because we have our Deans of Admission panel. We have some great schools that will be coming on to speak and talk about their process, how they look, what they look for in applicants. And we also have a Securing the Bag panel next week as well, where we're going to have a Dean of Financial Aid from a medical school come talk about how to finance your medical education. We're going to hear from recent residents about how they struggled or how they pay their loans and things like that. We're also going to hear from physicians as well, how they manage the loans. So don't be a baby pterodactyl. Sign up on Eventbrite for these events, and it's going to be great. Thank you guys so much for coming on here, and I will see you guys on Friday. Thank you to all our panelists as well.